Now, I think one of the most critical things is that 96% of us in this country are deficient in fibre. How terrifying is that? 96% of us. So we need more fibre, and we also need good quality protein. So again, most of us in the UK and the US and the Western world, we get enough protein, but we tend to backload it with a big, fat, juicy hamburger or steak or something in the evening. And protein shouldn't only come from red meat.
What if the simplest way to get better health was already in nature and in your kitchen cupboard? Today we're talking to someone on a mission to do just that. Simplify nutrition with the power of seeds and botanicals. From a Norfolk farm to your morning porridge, her creators are helping people boost energy, focus, immunity and gut health, one sprinkle at a time. Helen Johnston, the founder of Succeed, a nutritionist-led brand blending whole seeds and herbs into daily superfood mixes that work with any meal, sweet or savoury. We're unpacking her journey from magazine editor to seed science innovator, the story behind her blends and why the future of food might just start with something we've forgotten. So, in this episode, it's packed with practical tips that you can use in your own kitchen and business. So let's dive straight in. Hi Helen, welcome to the podcast. Really excited to hear your story. How are you?
Hi Sebastian, delighted to be here and to share my story. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. It's really my pleasure, actually. And thank you for bearing with. I know we've been playing a bit of a podcast ping pong for a couple of months due to the success of the podcast as we were discussing before this. Having such wonderful people wanting to come on a podcast like yourself has been really quite inspirational. And it just gives me a bigger drive to get these conversations out there, because your story in particular, I think, will hit home to so many people, whether it's on the kind of innovation side or the consumer side. Really excited to talk about. Let's start first with the journey from magazine editor to creating this wonderful blend of all kinds of nature or natural blends of seeds and goodness. Let's go through that. How did it start?
Yes, it doesn't sound particularly a conventional route, but actually I must say, although I'm pretty new to the food and drink industry, I have discovered that many people, in fact probably most people, haven't had a conventional route in, and that's really joyful. Everybody's come from such different walks of life. I felt welcomed in, actually, as I've tried to find different communities, and we're all in it together. People are really supportive and really helpful. Yes, I was a journalist, a glossy magazine editor. I edited magazines like New Woman and was deputy editor of Cosmo and Marie Claire, and worked on Grazia and for all the newspapers. It was a wonderful time. Wow. And what I found was I was representing groups of readers. So I would go with a group of teenagers, for example, to Downing Street for them to put their burning issues to the Prime Minister of the day. Or I was editing Tesco magazine actually for a while, and I took a group of mums there again to talk to the Prime Minister at the time about their worries, their concerns, their grievances. People, as you can imagine, had all sorts of issues they wanted to get off their chest or they wanted something done about. But actually the thread that ran through it all seemed to be health in its many guises. And as we know, we're living in the middle of a health crisis now, whether it's soaring rates of obesity or diabetes or heart health or the mental health epidemic. And I just thought, I've got to do something about it. So I really enjoyed being in the media and helping give a platform to some of those people where I could. But I thought I wanted to do something more practical. And that's when I decided to train to become a nutritionist and to create a health food product that hopefully can help people in a really simple way.
Interesting. You simplified the hell out of that, but I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that. Magazine editing, editorial stuff, talking to the Prime Minister, that's pretty cool background already. A lot may say that's a great success in your kind of career, if you like, life in general. And you must have been quite comfortable at the time with that, presumably a good salary, a good amount of success within your industry and a lot of contacts as well. You could have done pretty much anything, I presume, with the experience you'd gained at the time. So to jump into a full-time course, perhaps with nutrition for your cause, you make it sound like such an easy thing, but so many of us That's the kind of thing that we think about, we might talk to our friends about doing. Oftentimes we don't have the courage to do that. So what is it that kind of got you to switch from, this your mindset really at the end of the day? So what caused that? How long did that take? Was it a long
Well,
period of time?
yeah, I had maybe it's because I've got entrepreneurship in my family, in the people around me. I had a burning desire to do something, to create something. And although I absolutely loved my journey through the media, I will say the media landscape was changing inevitably. I was working in branded content not long before I decided to retrain, which again was really interesting because that's when I was working for big brands like Tesco, as I mentioned, and Co-op and Holland and Barrett and all sorts of different brands, creating their content for them, whether it was in print or social media or digital, working in media agency. But I just felt that I wanted to do something myself that I could control. And I was fortunate enough to be able to retrain whilst still working initially, which definitely makes it easier. I trained at the most incredible place called the College of Naturopathic Medicine, commonly known as CNM. And they have wonderful courses on nutrition, on herbalism, on acupuncture, on all sorts of wonderful things. I met the most fascinating, supportive, amazing group of people and lecturers. People came from all walks of life. There was a pharmacist in my class, a nurse, an Ayurvedic medicine practitioner, and then there was a digital marketeer and a chef, and all of us from all sorts of walks of life, just on this wonderful journey. And I have to say, it's an awfully long time since I was last studying, and I never imagined I'd be able to go back to it, but I loved it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was hard. My degree was in English literature. This was biomedicine, biochemistry, phytonutrients, all those sciencey words that I never thought I'd get my head around. But I loved it and luckily did really well in it because it was just so fascinating and such a well-taught course, so inspiring. And so it hasn't been a hardship to change. And actually what I love is the fact that I'm now in a really growing industry. And I'll be really honest, I do love the media and I've got all sorts of contacts, younger people who are just starting out in it. And I can see their excitement of going into it. But it's a different world since social media has exploded into our daily lives. And so to be in this food and drink industry with all its trials and tribulations, but one, and being on the side of it that I am, which is the health food side, where I feel there are huge opportunities. I feel people have got the message. They do want to embrace this. There was a recent Mintel report that suggests 82% of people want to eat more healthily. They know they should. We've all got the message that we should eat more healthily, but they either don't have time or don't know how to. It's exciting to be trying to help in this regard. So the journey, it does seem unconventional. Yes, I did love what I was doing, but I equally love, or I think love, certainly now for me right now, I love even more what I'm doing now.
Interesting. And of course, I don't know if you ever had the plan to actually start off, succeed in your early days, or maybe you wanted to be a nutritionist and that was what your kind of career was going to take you to. So at what point during your kind of transformation, if you like, from media specialist to nutritionist, what part of this journey did you think, oh, actually, do you know what, I'm going to create this wonderful blend of different kind of botanical products to try and elevate people's life?
Actually, in truth, the idea of creating something came first before the idea of retraining. I actually got a little way down the line, I should say, of creating a non-alcoholic drink, and it really was quite at the beginning. Seedlip had just come out, which I didn't realize. It was my own issue. I thought, I'm drinking a bit too much, and dry January works for a while, but I need something. But I was working really hard in the agency I was in, and I couldn't quite juggle, and I wasn't ready to give up my day job at that point. So I shelved that. And then I came up with the idea of some sort of whole food nutrition, but I hadn't quite formulated it. And then a friend of mine actually had done the same course, the nutrition course, and I became more and more fascinated in what she was doing and in the role she was playing, seeing clients, helping them in their daily lives to improve their diet, improve their health. And I thought there was some synergy there. And I felt that if I was going to try and produce a food product, I really wanted the background knowledge and understanding and education to give me the authority to be able to create this product and to
Yeah,
talk about
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to know as much as you can about the product you're going to launch. You're probably a lot like me, like you don't want to be the least knowledgeable person in the room when it comes to what you're trying to put all your time and effort into, right? You want to make sure that you hit the ground
Absolutely.
running.
I'm not sure I'll ever be the most knowledgeable person in the room because who of us will, but you're absolutely right. You want to know as much as you can and keep learning. And there's just such a great connection, obviously, between the two sides of what I'm now doing, which is practicing as a nutritionist and creating and promoting and pushing forward with Succeed. When I first started training, I really did think it was just to give me the gravitas, the background knowledge to create the product. But actually, the more I studied, the more I became passionate about trying to practice as well. And now, perhaps there's a conversation for later, but it's very hard to juggle the two. So I do have to be mindful. And the business is my priority, that Succeed is my priority, because you can't do it part-time, as I know. But the privilege of being able to work with some clients is really great. And it keeps everything relevant because I can see so much of what ails us in terms of health issues is preventable through diet largely. Of course there's exercise, of course there's stress relief, of course there's other elements, but diet is, to my mind, the principal driver of good health. And where I can help on a personal one-to-one level, seeing clients, that's really wonderful, and it then helps inform what I'm doing with the brand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it gives your ears to the ground, if you like, to the actual direct consumer that you're appealing to with the products you're selling. So walk us through what Succeed is in that case, Helen, because I know we've talked about it, but from obviously the founder's viewpoint, what is Succeed?
So Succeed is a range of super blends, we call them, of seeds and botanical herbs with functional benefits. And they are used as toppers of or savoury dishes. They go equally well, so you can sprinkle them on your yogurt or porridge in the morning, mix them into a smoothie, or add them to soup or salads at lunchtime. You could even stir them into the spag bol in the evening and the kids won't notice. They're getting all this amazing extra goodness. So we've got 4 different blends, one for gut health, one designed for an energy boost, one to help with focus, and one to improve immunity. And they're basically just natural whole foods. So it's a bit like a whole food supplement, as it were. As a nutritionist, I do really believe in the benefits of vitamins and minerals supplements in pill form or liquid form, however people prefer to take it. But I principally believe in the power and the benefits of whole foods. And that's really what I wanted to do. I think that the supplement world, it's amazing, but it's also very confusing. And I feel that a lot of people are spending a lot of money on these. They don't quite know what they are doing. They don't know what's in them. There are some brilliant brands, don't get me wrong, but there are also a lot with fillers and excipients and bulking agents and all sorts of things. Whereas what we're doing is we are using only whole foods. And there's something ideally that's better when you have these nutrients in their whole food form, because you get the full sort of food matrix that helps our body absorb these things in a way that we were intended to do, rather than the extracts that we take in pill form. For example, our immunity blend, that's got things like pumpkin seeds and chia seeds and flax seeds in, but it's also got wonderful anti-inflammatories like turmeric, ginger, and black pepper. The blend overall is really high in zinc and selenium, which is what we need to support our immune system. And then the gut health blend has got 13 different plant foods in it. And you know how we need a real diversity to support our microbiome. This is what we understand now. I think a lot of us have cottoned on to the fact that the gut health is crucial. Everything starts in the gut. So 70% of our immune system lives in our gut. So if we have a digestion which is out of whack, then we're likely to have an immune system that's not functioning properly. And obviously our immune system not only just wards off coughs and colds, but is keeping us healthy and protected against much more serious illnesses. Also, 90% of our serotonin is made in our gut. That's our happy hormone, as we call it. So again, if your gut is not in harmony, in balance, if those microbes aren't the right ones, it can affect our moods. And on. So I think a lot of us understand now that gut health is important. And I'm hoping that with Succeed, this is just something, it's really easy. As I say, you sprinkle it on any meal and you've got this extra burst of fibre, lots of wonderful plant protein, and then all these extra minerals. It's high in calcium, for example, the gut health mix. So each of the individual super blends have been designed with a very specific functional purpose in mind.
Yeah, I think what you touched on there is something we were discussing earlier, and especially I think when you get to, I don't want to say an older age necessarily, but certainly when you get past your kind of youth, you really start to notice much more the changes within your energy levels, clarity, the kind of mental fog we tend to start getting when we're older, and yeah, sleep issues potentially, digestive, anxiety, stress, depression. There's all these different things which, when you're younger, you don't really associate so much with perhaps what you are consuming or what's around you in your environment. And certainly for me, the last maybe 5 to 10 years have been quite a big kind of eye-opening time, and my self-awareness, if you like, is like increased dramatically. And along with that is noticing actually the subtle changes that my diet can have, or even something as simple as my hydration levels, like the water we drink. Like for me, like it's the quality of the water I drink will have a direct impact on how I feel in terms of feeling satiated and therefore hydrated, and therefore my brain functioning better and energy levels functioning better, to, of course, the diet, when I eat, how I eat. This whole breakfast thing I've thrown out the window. I fast now, and I find that's been my biggest positive change, is just fasting, actually allowing my metabolism to rest a little bit in between meals. And
it's really interesting. It's great that you're so in tune. You're sensitive to what affects you, because a lot of us just blunder on. We're too busy. We haven't got time, and we're not in tune. And that was absolutely me for years and years. Don't get me wrong. Working in that sort of high-pressured media environment, I understood the value of good food and good nutrition. I come from a farming family in Norfolk, and we were brought up eating well, understanding what was cooking from scratch, but it doesn't mean you follow it, does it? Until something opens your eyes. Yeah, and I think it's interesting you bring up fasting, because it really does work for some people, but it really doesn't for others. And, you know, what we're taught as nutritionists is absolutely about that personal journey and what is specific to you. Because I find I meet a lot of clients who are skipping breakfast, and that just doesn't work for them. It puts their body into sort of stress, and they might be managing on a cup of coffee, and then it comes to 11 a.m. and they're absolutely starving. So they snack on whatever junk is lying around the office or the house, and that sets them on a sugar glucose roller coaster. It does depend, but you're absolutely right. Fasting is really beneficial for some people, and I think what is true is we should all be allowing our digestive systems time to rest, because what we tend to do is just eat constantly, or eat or drink or snack, and that's become the norm, and it's really not good for us. But what I'm hoping to do with Succeed is just offer some help along this route. So for example, talking about breakfast, if people would have a healthy protein-rich breakfast, so some lovely Greek yogurt, for example, and then a good dose of seeds and ideally some berries, that's a great way to start, rather than what a lot of us do, which is croissant, muffin. So it's just refined carbohydrates, which turns to sugar and sets you off wrong for the day.
Yeah, no, agreed, actually. It's absolutely that. And actually, oftentimes that's what we get wrong, isn't it? It's just the wrong foods. And a lot of it, to be honest, just lack of preparation. And all of us, the mistake we make, and even I make, as aware as I am, and I'm sure you make the same mistake, is that we we don't plan enough oftentimes. And then, of course, life is busy, right? And then by the time you've had a couple of meetings, you've rushed here, you've rushed there, you're hungry, you've reached the point of like getting on the verge of hangry and you need to eat something. But what is available around you usually that's going to satisfy your hunger in a nutritious, wholesome way? Usually nothing, right? Because everything's sandwiches and, well, just crap food, generally speaking, that's convenience led. So it's
It's
very
fine.
difficult to fulfill that hunger in a way that's actually going to be a positive
Yeah.
to the rest of your day. So unless you plan ahead, then you can end up in this cycle of, well, bad nutrition simply because you're not planning ahead. It's not because you can't, it's just you've not planned ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all fall victim of to that. You know, we're busy, we've got busy lives, rushing about, and as we've heard more and more, we live in this what they call an obesogenic environment. So we're just surrounded by ultra processed foods, and it's too tempting. It's too easy. They're cheaper often, and they're definitely more available. But what I will say, the joy of being part of this sort of challenger brand community of food and drink founders is that so many people are creating better for you brands, whether that's snack brands or drink brands, the rise of kefir and kombucha and all sorts of those wonderful fermented products, but lower salt and lower fat and sugar, just clean label products. It is amazing to be amongst those sorts of founders when I'm in these different communities. And so in a way, there's a celebration to be had there that the message is getting out to the entrepreneurs to create something. There is a market for it. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, it takes a while for that to come through the funnel and for it to get really those brands to be widespread. Often you find them all in the likes of Planet Organic or Whole Foods or Selfridges or those sorts of places to start with, and hopefully then they filter out to farm shops and independents, but it might take a while for them to get into the bigger supermarkets, which means that there can be a cost implication, but hopefully the message is starting to get through about how important it is to have the best quality ingredients, and sometimes that does come with a price tag.
Absolutely. But then I'm actually French, right? So I spent a lot of my time in France when I was younger, and my family are from all over the world, which has been a great influence for me in terms of food, because it seems to me, especially in Europe, that people place such a larger emphasis on food there. And it's almost like England actually is one of the cheapest places, probably in the world, to actually get food. As in, your average supermarket shop here is way cheaper than most places. Even France, actually, the last time I went to France was way more expensive than here. But the point I'm trying to make is that we have a different ideology here of what the price for food is. And we try and go for the cheapest things, whereas it seems like in Europe in particular, people just invest much more in the food that they eat. But I think the difference is that they invest much more in its purest form of good quality food in the first place, and then they make things from that. Whereas
Yeah.
for us, we judge everything on the final product, which of course is difficult to get a good price point on it, because 2, 3, 4 different hands have had to exchange in order to produce that final product. So of course, the price is going to be high if it's nutritious. And of course, the only way to bring the price down is to remove the nutrition to make it more scalable, more streamlined, longer shelf life, and a cheaper price point to suit the kind of
Yeah.
expectations the market has, right?
Yeah.
It's
I
like a
guess.
mindset. It's a mindset thing, I think, rather than the reality. Because the reality is, like you say, is there are plenty of options available, but the lack of the right mindset, I think, is what's lacking. And yeah, absolutely. I think people are waking up much more, like you've said, and it's nice to see it. And you can see that the market is changing because of this. And dare I say, even government policy are hopefully going to change. And certainly in London, I've seen with schools, schools was a big one for me. So I've got children that go to school down in Sussex, and all of their schools, they rely on these kind of big Chartwell's foods and these massive businesses that supply hospitals with food and schools that don't have proper kitchens. The food is quite honestly shit. It's like terrible. It's all like full of additives. It's all defrost, reheated, microwave, whatever you want to call it. It's just not, in my opinion, the kind of food we should be feeding children in particular. Children are the best kind of blank template, if you like, to really push nutritious good food. And if we're failing them right at the beginning, then that's paving the way for a pretty difficult life later on to pick up on these kind of nutritious foods. But what I have seen in London is this, I don't know if you've heard of this initiative, because I visited a few schools here just to have a chat with them, and they've got this chef-led initiative. So basically, I think there was a chef that was a parent and saw the crap food. I can't remember what I should have done my research on this, but anyway, it's a chef-led initiative where they put chefs in schools to cook fresh meals. And I think that's wonderful. And I don't see why that's not a wider thing. Like, how is that not a normal thing?
Yeah, I think it's a charity called Chefs in Schools with
That's the one. I think
Henry
it's that,
Dimbleby
exactly.
and Thomasina Mears, and it's amazing work. I guess it all comes down to budget, doesn't it? It's a charity, so they raise money and they then send as many chefs as they can afford to into these schools. But absolutely, it's a systemic problem, and it goes from the cooking and the preparation, but all the way back to the sourcing. And I know I was listening to Patrick Holford of the Sustainable Food Trust talk about an amazing initiative the Welsh government, I think, has brought in to help them grow Welsh carrots and give them to Welsh school children, because what they were doing, it was importing Chinese carrots and feeding them to the children. It's insanity. But because there was no longer any carrot processing facility, that's why the whole system had broken down. So they were importing Chinese ones because it was cheaper. But I really believe it does need, I think, as you alluded to earlier, it needs regulation from above. And this constant bleating about nanny state is it's a nonsense when you look at the catastrophe of the children now have got type 2 diabetes. That never happened. Even 25 or 30 years ago, that wasn't happening. And now it's a real problem, not to mention the obesity and the dental issues with kids drinking fizzy pop and then having so many of their teeth removed. How can a government not be doing something to help prevent? And I know that the big food has got powerful lobbyists, and also I know they are important, powerful companies that help feed the nation, but there's got to be some sort of shift. And I did think it was very hopeful when I read recently that 16% of the food and drink we now buy comes from challenger brands. So that is a really big shift.
Nice.
And shows that some of the sorts of brands we're talking about, the better for you, new, clean label brands that are coming through are beginning to gain traction. And I guess probably what happens is that a founder will grow it and push it forward as much as possible. And if it's going to be a success, if customers like it, then maybe one of the bigger companies comes and buys it out to hopefully scale it without ruining it.
I don't think food companies surely are inherently bad. I think it's just the status quo. It's just the way it's been for such a long time. Coming off the Second World War times where, food was scarce, there was issues. We had to learn how to scale quick, and we had to learn how to do things and take shortcuts, and things went badly from there on. And instead of sorting itself out, once you do have then the infrastructure that is fully capable of creating a much, much better food system, for sure. There is really no excuse these days, especially with all the problems with farmers, British farmers, they're not earning enough, blah, blah, blah. We're importing more and more. It doesn't need to be that way, because when we say to import from China is cheaper, the numbers can be manipulated any which way. Because if you say it's going to cost us, let's say, £1 a kilo to bring a carrot from China, as opposed to the more expensive carrot from the UK, which is, let's say, £1.50 a kilo, then let's be honest, that 50p a kilo, it's not really that much, is it? It's not. More expensive, yes, but when you actually whittle it down, is it really that much more expensive? It's not. The price increase, what I'm trying to say, is not as big as people make out.
I suppose it's also depending on what costs you're counting in, because if you are counting in the carbon footprint of bringing those carrots from China, for example, they should be much more expensive. And that's where the complexities come, because we're not looking at that much more nuanced picture often.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I totally agree. Ever since the Green Revolution and Norman Borlaug creating these wonderful resistant strains of grain back around the Second World War time. So it was a miracle that so many people were saved from starvation. But we've continued with that. We've continued just creating these mass-produced, cheap, often white flour components of our diet, and we just haven't looked beyond that. And it's become, I totally agree that the food industry isn't inherently evil, but it's part of our capitalist consumerist society, isn't it? And
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
all chasing profits because that's what their jobs are. They'd be sacked if they didn't do that, and then somebody
Yes,
else would do
exactly.
it. Which is why I think there needs to be some sort of move from the top. Jamie Oliver did brilliant things, but it needs to be furthered. The sugar tax, I think it has been proven that it did work. It's not probably the only or maybe even the best lever, but at least it was something that helped. And as a nutritionist, I just see it day in, day out. People want to do better for themselves, but it's too difficult in this environment, or with time or with cost. So I'm hoping I can do my tiny little bit to help.
Let's go back into that one actually, because I was saying to you earlier as well before we started recording that over the years, certainly I felt my clarity levels decreasing, energy levels, all kinds of different things that affected my day-to-day life. I remember at one point, not that many years ago, I would literally need a nap like in the afternoon because I just would become so bloody tired. A stressful life, business, just all these different things going on, no time, just not putting enough time to my own health and sleep quality and exercise and all this kind of stuff. So I went on a huge shift in how I viewed my day-to-day stuff, and part of my change, if you like, was to think more about my food I'm eating, exercise levels, sleep quality, rest, and all these things. But also, at the end of the day, the food that we eat also is lacking on a lot of nutrients because over time, as I'm sure, the quality of the soil, the amount of nutrition in the foods that we eat means that for the same kilo of X amount of food that we eat, we're only going to get X amount percentage of the nutrients that are supposed to be in these foods. So oftentimes we do have to supplement, I think, in order to fill the gap of some of the foods that we're not quite getting that from. And for me, it's been a really difficult journey because how do you know exactly what you should and shouldn't be taking? And yes, you see all these Instagram posts about, there's all these experts all of a sudden everywhere, right? So everyone on Instagram is an expert and the conflicting views are so diverse that you think you're learning, but every time you go into that little world, you become less and less knowledgeable because everyone's telling you different things. Everyone's telling you, oh no, this is the right way, that's the wrong way, or this is the right product and that's not the right product. This is the right quantity, that, and it's a really difficult environment to kind of navigate. What do you suggest? And I know you've got your Succeed, which I guess is created off the back of that, is to create more simplicity in a very complex world. But also I like about Succeed is another big problem I find is because I do take a lot of supplements, but like what you've said is there's a lot of bulk agents, fillers, even what the capsules are made of. And there's all kinds of different products that are added on to every single one of these pills that I'm taking. So then I think to myself, what's the compounding effect as well of all these different things I'm taking? Surely that can't be a good thing for my body. So
No, you're
yeah,
absolutely right. Honestly, the simplest answer, and like I said earlier, we are all different. So a personal approach is needed. To be practical, sometimes we need some broad brushstroke rules, is to eat 3 whole food meals a day. Try not to snack in the middle. And those meals it really should be what our grandparents or great grandparents, it probably now for many people, what they ate. What most of us are doing are eating too many carbohydrates. Now, there's nothing wrong with good quality carbohydrates. It's our body's preferred source of fuel. So whole grains, oats, those sorts of things, really important, but not white bread toast or pasta, or even the supermarket whole grain seedy bread is still processed. If you look at the packaging, it's terrifying.
yeah.
But I'm not here to scaremonger, absolutely not. We got to do the best we can. But in an ideal world, we would start our days with a kind of protein-rich breakfast. Now, I think one of the most critical things is that 96% of us in this country are deficient in fibre. How terrifying is that? 96% of us. So we need more fibre, but we also need good quality protein. So again, most of us in the UK and the US and the Western world, we get enough protein, but we tend to backload it with a big fat juicy hamburger or steak or something in the evening. And protein shouldn't only come from red meat. We don't eat enough fish, and oily fish is really important because many of us are deficient in omega-3, which you can get from seeds. It's a different type of omega-3, but it's still a really good source, plant source. So I would say if you're eating 3 decent size meals that have got good sources of protein and plenty of fiber and some healthy fats, things like avocados and olive oils, this will keep you fuller for longer. You then won't need to snack. And it's most of us know it. Eat dark green leafy vegetables. Eat the rainbow. Eat 5 fruit and veg a day. It should really be 10, but I've got to do what we can do. If you follow those rules that we've been taught many times, you won't go far wrong. And we shouldn't need lots of supplements. I will say, living in the UK, especially as we're coming out of a long, very damp winter, vitamin D is often something that people are deficient in, but you should always get your levels checked. Omega-3, again, I think there's really good evidence to suggest that's worth supplementing with, and maybe a multivitamin. But again, and to your point about what goes with what, and again, we're taught we have to cross-reference everything for this called this drug-nutrient interaction to make sure that if you're taking medication, you have to check that the vitamins, minerals you might add on won't counteract or have an additive effect with that medication. And similarly, if you're taking lots of different vitamins and minerals, you have to check that they work well together. But in an ideal world, we really would be getting most of this from a whole food diet. And nuts and seeds are really underutilized in Western diet. And seeds have always been the poor relation to nuts. And they are both a really easy way of adding some of this wonderful whole food nutrition, whether it's fiber, plant protein, healthy fats, those sorts of things. And then the botanical herbs I'm really excited about because we used to use those, of course, that's all we had as medicine for millennia. And some of the ones that we're using in our super blends, some of them are forgotten superheroes like nettle, really rich in vitamin C and iron. Dandelion is a great liver detoxifier. Elderberry, rich in anthocyanins, which are important phytonutrients to help plant nutrients, to help that act like antioxidants. And then we're also using some more exotic sounding herbs and botanicals, things like Korean ginseng, which has been used to build resilience for a very long time in Chinese traditional medicine. So we're hopefully bringing all these things in, which is just another way. And it's all whole food. So if people can try and eat in that way, hopefully they need less of the supplements and it simplifies things.
Interesting. So I guess let's turn back to exactly that. So Succeed, Helen, when did you launch exactly? Like how far into your kind of nutrition and that path did you launch?
Well, I was developing the brand at the same time as I was studying. I actually launched finally at the very end of September last year. So we're almost 5
you're
months
brand new.
old.
I didn't realize you're fresh off the shelf as such.
Fresh off the block, yeah. So but it took me 2 to 3 years to develop it because I was fastidious about my sourcing. I wanted to make sure that everything was the very best quality and came from as close to home as possible. So I think I mentioned, we have a farm in Norfolk, family farm in Norfolk, and we experimented with growing some flax seeds there and also some hemp, which was really great. Our farm is regenerative, so I'm really passionate about that as well. It's fascinating to try and understand the ways we can improve the soil quality. Back to your point about the depletion of nutrients now. So there's a really interesting movement that I think started in the States and now has gained massive traction here, so much so that there's a big annual festival of regenerative farming called Groundswell. They call it the Glastonbury of farming. Nice. That happens every year in Hertfordshire, and it brings together all these people who share their learnings about trying to keep the soil intact. And there's a real mirror to the health of the soil as there is to the health of our microbiome. There's all this bacteria. And what we've done for 100 years or so now is we ploughed up all that soil, destroying the soil matrix, and releasing the carbon, which is another real problem, as we all know. And so it's been amazing to dive into this world of regenerative farming, to experiment on our farm growing these things, and then to work with the UK farmers who are using some of these techniques to grow their seeds. So my initial plan was that I was going to get every single one of my ingredients from the UK. It was all be organic, all regeneratively farmed, and it doesn't exist, and B, even if it did, it would be madness. But so where I can, I'm working with UK farmers, and for the rest of the seeds, they're organically grown in Europe. So it was really important to me that I wasn't bringing things from the other side of the world that I didn't know how they'd been farmed, if possible. And then the herbs is a bit different, as you can imagine. I haven't yet found a UK grower of Korean ginseng, although I'm looking. Apparently someone did tell me that black pepper is grown in Cornwall. I think at present ours comes from Madagascar. Again, we're just using organic as much as possible, but just making sure that we're working with all the different suppliers and growers to get the best ingredients.
So let's talk about, so launching in September, that's barely 6 months ago, not even 6 months ago. That's a very little amount of time. So how was that journey, and has it been everything you expected? What kind of curveballs have you had to deal with?
I think I was really warned how hard it was. So I did try to take on board that message. And yes, it has been hard. And what sort of curveballs? I think that's the supplier thing was really complex, because we're working with 20 different botanicals across all our blends, and they all come from different countries, different growers. Obviously, we're then working with one brilliant company who's helping us bring them all together. But it's super complicated. I wanted it organic. It has to be heat treated. It's got to be in this format. It needs to arrive on this day. We had many setbacks there. The chamomile was stuck in France, or the ginger was still in Sri Lanka, and those sorts of things. Packaging took longer to print. We had a specific kind of packaging to make sure, because we cold mill our seeds to make sure they are the most bioavailable for people. Because if you eat a lot of these seeds whole, especially flax seeds, they more or less pass straight through you, and you just don't get nearly enough of the benefits. So they're cold mill, but that means they're after a while, if they're not stored correctly, they can oxidize. So we had to find the perfect packaging. Then we had to find the boxes to put the packaging in. And obviously, bear in mind, this is all new to me. I had no connection to the world, no knowledge of it. So it's been a massive learning curve. So yes, sourcing the ingredients, and then the branding. And I thought, I can do this. I'm going to be able to do this because my background's in the media and marketing, so I get it. But somehow when it's your own product, it's really hard to think, yeah, that's it. It's good enough. It's good. It was never good enough. So that was really difficult. I branded and then I rebranded, but just before I launched. But yeah, and then I took the plunge, booked a few trade shows before I actually had the products ready, because I thought, I just got to get out there. This has been in my head for so long. And what if nobody likes it? What if they think it's a mad idea? I've got to get out there and talk to enough important, serious people. So luckily, I booked IFE, the trade show at Excel in every March. I think it stands for International Food Exhibition. And that was brilliant. I got really good feedback. And then I did the same at the Natural and Organic Product Exhibition, NOPEX, again. And then I did Specialty Fine Food in September. So I really put myself out there, and got some traction there. We had a brilliant relationship with one of the small high-end multiples, I won't name it, in London, and they were definitely going to take us. And I was so excited. And on the back of that, I got into a distributor. And I'm still waiting. Literally, the first conversation I had with these people was in March at IFE. Yes, they were really keen. The conversation kept going. I went to see them. I had a good connection there. And for whatever reason, we're reviewing this. So it's really hard, because I've done a lot of figures based on that. Hopefully, luckily now we've picked up in different areas that I wasn't expecting. Yes. Like a wonderful chain of garden centres called Blue Diamonds just come online, and we're in 11 of their stores. Wow. And after a couple of months of knocking on the email door of Selfridges, we are now in there, which is amazing.
Oh, wow. Congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yes, lots of ups and downs and just a lot of incredibly hard work. I've got some wonderful people helping me because there's no way I could do it on my own. But it is hard because I'm a sole founder and the buck stops with me. So I'm working ridiculously hard. I'm used to working hard. I like hard work. Now it's my own business. It's at least 18-hour days with no let up. And I've got a family as well. So trying to balance that is hard.
And if you were giving advice to anyone thinking about a similar path in whatever dream or direction somebody may want to go in this kind of entrepreneurship path, what would be the one piece of advice you would give anyone?
I think really do your research, reach out to as many people as you can and ask for feedback. I probably left it too late. I think I was scared. What if people don't get it? What if they don't like it? And so I kept going and going. And maybe I should have asked sooner. And that's a way of building a community. I feel really privileged because I have a community of nutritionists because I've gone through that way. Yeah. But I think had I been braver, I might have built a community around the brand earlier. But I felt, I don't really know what I'm doing. Who am I to be doing this? Failing, probably perhaps more so of women. But maybe we're all guilty of doing that. Is this going to work? All that self-doubt, all that. And I'm old enough and grown up enough to have not fallen prey to that. But maybe sometimes it's harder when you're older because you've heard so many stories of where it didn't work. Maybe when you're really young, you just boldly go into it. I don't know, but it's been great. I have reached out to lots of people and they've all been supportive. And nobody's ever said, no, I haven't got time, I'm not going to help you. No, I don't want to do it. Everybody says, yes. Sometimes they haven't got hours and hours to give you, but often they'll bounce you on to somebody else. So I just think reach out, ask for help as much as possible. People like helping, and where they can, they will. And if not, they'll make another connection for you.
I think what you touched on there, kind of self-limiting beliefs essentially, is really the driver of, I don't want to say because we all have these self-limiting beliefs, but it's the single biggest restriction to true happiness and joy in life is this kind of prison that we set ourselves up in, and the stories we tell ourselves in our mind. And I think it's so important to do what you've done, and obviously I've done as well, and hopefully many more will do, is to just park them and go for it anyway and prove yourself wrong. If anything, it's about your own limitations and doing it regardless. Because I think the more you do that, the more you train yourself that actually, hang on a minute, maybe all the narratives I'm having in my head are not quite true. If I can do this and that, then that means I can do anything. And I think that's another big part, I think, of kind of general health and well-being, and something I'm trying to work more towards is exactly that. It's just, self-limiting beliefs and mindset, and believing that you can achieve pretty much anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about small steps. Whether it's in terms of the business, I took a stall at Primrose Hill Market, which is quite near me. It cost only about, I can tell you exactly, it cost £32 for them.
Yeah, right.
They're the most wonderful community of people. In some ways, I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah.
I could then speak face-to-face, one-to-one with all those potential customers who then became actual customers because they bought my product and they liked it. And it gave me so much confidence. And, that's the case up and down the land. There are markets where it's very affordable. So for anyone, even if you haven't got vast reserves of savings, which many of us don't, or investment, there are small ways of getting out there and testing things. And then it's the same as a sort of mirror image in terms of one's health and diet. Just back to your point, it's about small steps. It really is. And Succeed fits into that. It's not going to change your life overnight. You're not going to suddenly have boundless energy by taking one scoop of our energy blend on one day. It's about the small, consistent things you do. So, go to bed at a decent time and try and get up at the same time each day. I know it's easier said than done, those small things. To your point earlier about hydration, you do try and make sure you're drinking enough water, make it herbal tea if water's not the most exciting thing. Add some seeds to your diet, try and start with a protein-rich breakfast. Those small things, habit stacking, I think, is
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
so. If you can try and add those little habits onto things you already do, so it doesn't become overwhelming either in terms of your own health or building a brand. It's just one step at a time, small increments. That's how we move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Helen. That was amazing. That was Helen Johnston, founder of Succeed, redefining how easy and delicious real nutrition can be by bringing whole seeds and botanicals back into the spotlight. If today's conversation inspired you to rethink how to nourish your body, start small. Try adding one of Helen's super blends to your next meal and notice the difference. A big thanks to our sponsor, Embrace AI Consultancy. Whether you're in hospitality, food or wellness, we help businesses transform with intelligent AI systems that reduce costs and unlock growth. Check out the show notes for a link. Share this episode with someone who you think is trying to eat better, feel better, or build something meaningful. And until next time, stay curious, stay healthy, and keep growing. And actually, before we go off, Helen, where can we find you?
We are online at succeed.life, and that is spelled SUCSEED .life. Or we're in about 40 independent stores, so we're at Selfridges, Panzers and St John's Wood, some wonderful stores, farm shops in Norfolk, in Gerald's Darts Farm, in Devon, so all sorts of places, depending where you are in the country. But yes, we're definitely available online.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Helen. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.